Alright, well the '08 Escalade has come to the shop today because I need to change out some rotors and also need to change the brakes out as well. But you may be wondering, why do we got to change the rotors out? Because they don't look too bad. They're actually not scored up and they're not worn in too bad. Well, let me just tell you why, and then we'll go through the tools that we need and some things we're going to do that helps us keep this vehicle clean for so many years. So here's what happened. I was headed from Nashville to Chattanooga, and you got to go over the big mountain to get down to Chattanooga on I-24. And there was this little regenerative braking four-banger hybrid-looking thing that decided it was gonna camp out in the fast lane going down the mountain and doing like 5 under the speed limit. Well, this is a big old girl right here, and it speeds up when you're going downhill. So I ended up riding the freaking brakes the whole time because this car would not get out of the fast lane, thinking it's doing a little faster than the semi. I'm good to stay over here. Well, if somebody sees one of these big old girls coming at you, I would suggest getting out of the way, because now I have warped my rotors, having to ride them all the way down that mountain, and I got to change these things out. So if you know anybody that likes to camp out in the fast lane in a little bitty car, send them this video, and then the next time you got to change your rotors on your Escalade or your GM, Tahoe or whatever, they can come over to the house and help you. Enough of the ranting. Let's get started on here, what we got to do to change these rotors out. Alright, so tools wise, it's not going to take a lot. We need some C-clamps to push the pistons back into calipers. We got to take a little star bolt off that, by the way, I'll show you how to do that. Don't use those right there, or you might as well just get you a drill. I just set them down there for example. You're going to need one that you can put on like a little impact driver, a little star tool. If you use those, you'll just end up drilling the thing out because you're going to strip the head off of it, or you break your little tool in it. And we need a little WD-40 to loosen things up, probably a hammer. We need a couple of bolts. You're going to need like, I think they're 3/8-16 bolts, and that's so you can pull the rotor off. Makes it a lot easier than just beating it off there. A couple sockets, 18mm for the nuts inside. Of course, you got to have a bigger one to get the lug for the tires off. And that's really about it. It's not a lot of stuff, a little scrubby brush and stuff like that. So we're in good shape with tools wise, nothing major for this. So now let's get set up, and we're going to do some prep stuff, because you may be wondering, if you look inside of here, this vehicle is, I don't know, it's a 2008 and it is 2025. So this thing is quite a few years old, maybe 18 years old, and you may be wondering, why is there only just a little bit of rust under this vehicle and it looks really clean? Well, I'll show you why when we get started here, because I usually do this right as I'm starting a job. That way, as I'm finishing the job, it's done as well. So let's get set up here, do a little bit of prep to show how to keep our vehicle nice and clean like this, even after 18 or so years, and then we'll get started on taking this stuff off. Alright, so before we get started on taking our warped rotor off and replacing the pads as well, one thing I do to keep these vehicles where they're rust free, or pretty much rust free, just have surface rust on them, but they're not nasty. And there's 2 reasons why I do this. Number 1, I don't like working on nasty stuff, and number 2, I don't like them being rusted out, because I'm going to keep these vehicles for a long time. This one's got 200,000 miles on it. So we're going to go through and we're going to clean all this stuff up first, and then let it sit there and it'll clean itself while we're doing our job. And then we don't have the time it takes to do all that, and it's not really hard to do. So first step, we're going to use something like this Super Clean right here. It dissolves grease and it's a cleaner, and so I'm going to squirt that all over everything. Then while I'm taking the bolts loose, I'll wash it off after that. Then we're going to put something on there which is a combination of, believe it or not, it is an engine restorer, because this stuff has got copper, lead, and a little bit of silver in it, I think. Well, none of those rust, and so spraying the metal around with some of this mixed 50-50 with some WD-40 in the big can, you got yourself kind of a rust preventative right here, mixed 50-50, that I'm going to squirt all over the frame and the steel parts. That way they don't rust. So let's get set up here, squirt this thing down, and like I say, I'm going to kind of squirt all over everything with this Super Clean stuff. And I got a piece of cardboard down here, by the way. Alright, so with all that kind of squirted down with the super clean there, now we can get to work. So that stuff's just going to sit there and dissolve a little bit. You don't want to let it dry on the surfaces, but you can let it sit there. So now, what we got to start with is an 18 millimeter. And if you look, this is not the one to take off. So it's not an 18. This is the slide. So what you want to get to is behind the slide right here. So there's a bolt right there that goes to it. And we'll just get us a big old breaker bar. Just got to get this thing broke loose. That one wasn't too bad. Then if you look right down at the bottom down here is another one, and that's an 18. So we got to get to him as well. That's the two bolts that hold the caliper on. So now we just got to loosen them up. We're not going to take them off yet because we got to have something to set this guy on. So now, in that short amount of time, that super clean's done about what it's going to do. So this is just water. What I want to do is just rinse that super clean off. And it's going to eat all them nasties off. So, like I say, it takes just a minute while you're working on something to do it right. And there you go. So just an extra minute there. We'll let that stuff dry. If I got to work on this thing right here, it's nice and clean now. So I'll just wipe it off so I can get a good grip on it. And we'll be good to go. Alright, so next up, we got to get something to set it on, because you don't want that caliper hanging off of its brake line. And so what we got is a bucket there, but that's not good enough because the brake lines are kind of tight and short on this one. So what we also got to do is get us a piece of baling wire. And so I'm just going to get me a little piece of baling wire here. And what we need to do is get ready to hold this caliper up so it doesn't hang on its brake hose. So right up here in the top, up here normally there's two little holes right here, or you may have to find one, but these two little holes work pretty good. And you can just hook your wire through one hole and then into the other hole. And what we're going to do is use that to support the caliper. So now let's just get it right up under there. And there we go. So now we got something to prevent the caliper from falling down so we can get it over here to our board. So now, let's take our bolts off. So let's take the bottom one off. And they're the same size, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. So now we can pull our caliper off, but it's kind of stuck on the rotor. So you get a hold of it, then get a screwdriver and just pry on it a little bit. And once you get it out a little bit, just wiggle it, and it'll push the piston back. So then, off comes our caliper. So you see what the wire does, it balances it so it'll sit on top of the boards right there, or the buckets, and now we're good to go. So now we got the caliper off. We'll work on him in a minute. So now we're going to go and get this rotor off. So here's where, coming in here with this kind of star bit versus these little guys makes all the difference in the world. Because yeah, they'll fit on there and you can bonk on them, but you're probably going to strip that little star out. So it's better just to use a little impact driver and put him in there, and then see, he'll pop right out. So there's our little screw. We're going to put some lithium grease on that guy when we get ready to put him back in. So that's really all that holds the rotor on. But that rotor is so stuck that you will beat yourself to death trying to get that rotor off. But that's where we got two little bolts, and these are 3/8/16, I believe. And so there's two holes in these rotors. Just look for the threaded ones. We're going to put those two bolts in there, and we're going to walk that guy off. So all we got to do, get in there and put a little tension on them. And if they're not, like this one is not wanting to lock off there, that's where you got to get a dead blow. And you're going to have to help it. Once you got some tension on these two, just whack on it until you hear it go thud, and then you'll know, see it loosened up. So all we got to do is keep tightening and tightening until we force that rotor off there. And there we go. So easy peasy with these two little bolts right here. Like I say, they're 3/8/16. Fits in there quite nicely. So just any old bolt will do. So off comes our rotor. And that was easy, wasn't it? So that rotor goes aside. Now we got to get our new rotor. But before we put our new rotor on, we got to do a little cleaning because all of this is rusted in here. So we want to take a brush and we're going to go around here. And once you get all that rust off of there, you don't have to worry about the surface rust too much. Now we want to come in here, and like I say, if I ever have to do this job again, let's just go ahead and try to prevent some rust. So I'm going to use some lithium grease, and I'm just going to coat around on that surface. And while we got our little bolt, let's go ahead and put a little lithium grease on our little bolt that holds the rotor on there. And we're ready to put the rotor back on. Alright, so all we got to do is just spin the hub around till we get our little bolt hole right there. And then right here on the rotor is any one of those three, but it was put on there right beside the screw, so I'm just going to put it back on the same way. So on goes our new rotor. And we just got to put our little bolt back in. And there you go. So we have just replaced our warped rotor. So now we're in good shape again. So now we got to scoot over here and do the brakes because that's part of it as well. And as you can see, my water and my super clean have pretty much dried out. So once we get the brakes done, I'll go ahead and follow back up with my little concoction of the Rotor engine stuff and the WD-40. So let's get set up over here and we will do these pads real quick. Alright, so on to the pads. And these aren't difficult either, just kind of hard to get them in there. But one of the things we got to do first is push the pistons back. And what we got to do there, let's leave the pad in this side and we're going to push the outer pad out. And you can see they just pop out of there. They're riding in these little channels. And as you can see, it got so hot I got a crack right down the middle of that one. Bunch of cracks in that. So that pad definitely got hot. Now one thing about these little clips, this kit, you know, it comes with the clips. But there's two kind of clips used on GM. One is the internal tang clip and one is external. Well, I never get the right one. And so these are actually opposite. They have the little clip that goes this way. This one's got the little clip going that way. And so I can't use these, but no big deal. As long as those are still good, I'll just leave them in there. So we got this pad out. So now what we got to do is squish the piston back. And here's where my little note right there that says check fluid, because it's really important as you're pushing back, it's going to push your fluid back up into your brake master. And so you want to make sure that if you've added fluid over the years, you look up there as you're pushing to make sure you don't bubble over the top, or else you're going to have a bunch of brake fluid raining down out of your master. So all we got to do to push the piston back with that one still in there, we just want to get right on the top of the pistons. And since this is a dual, we're going to have to use 2 C-clamps. If it's a single, you would just use 1. that WD-40 on my C-clamps here because they weren't wanting to cooperate today. So now we just got to put the second one on there. And we're going to put it on top of the other piston. So let's rotate it around a little bit so we can crank. So then you just want to crank one, crank the other, crank one, crank the other, and you'll feel them slowly go back in, and you'll know when they go fully back because they won't crank anymore. So you just go slowly back and forth. If you try to push one too far, it's going to wedge the piston, and then you're going to be in a mess. So just keep working little by little, and you can see when it bottoms out, it ain't going no further. So as long as you're careful and went back and forth, you'll know when both of them stop, you're bottomed out. So we got our pistons pushed back, ready for our new thicker brake pads. So now we can pop that other brake plate out, and you can see it went a long ways back in there. So he just comes out like that. Alright, so with the plates out, as you can see, it's got a big old crack right down the middle. So these got super hot and they're scored, but they don't have much life left, so it's okay, we'll change them out. But one thing to note, one pad has a squeaker, that's that little tab right there. And on the new one, it's easier to see that little shiny squeaker right there. So this was the pad to the pistons, so I got to replace it with the squeaker pad to the pistons. So let's get our pad up here and we'll put him in first. But the new pads have the little plates on them. And so what we got to do, and I know those guys like to upsell everything at the auto parts place, but it is a good idea to put this brake lubricant on here because it'll prevent them from squeaking. So just go ahead and buy the little thing, or just buy a big tube like I do. But I happen to get this one. So we just want to put some of that in between the pad and the plate on the back side. You don't want to put this stuff on the shoe. You want to put it on the metal. Does not go on the brake itself. Then we put our little plate back down like that. Also helps to hold that plate on when you're reassembling. Then this is where the pistons touch. So you want to put a little bit where the pistons touch. Right there. And now we're ready to put our pad back in. So all we got to do is get him back in these right here. But you want to push all this back forward a little bit so you'll have some room, because these things are full size. So this goes to the inside and it hooks around. So this is the way it goes. Now all we got to do is set him up in his grooves on an angle. Usually helps out a lot because there's little fingers right here. So if you can get it inside the fingers, a lot of times you can just pop it straight in there and then square it up. So then it went in there super easy like that. Now we got that one in, and that feels pretty good. So we just got to do the same thing for the other one, and it's got a plate on it as well. So take a little plate off. So all we got to do is get this one in there. So it goes in the same way. You just slip it in, face it forward like that, and then square it up. So super simple if you'll lean them in there. If you're struggling, that means that you're hitting these little tabs right here with the shoe. So you need to go in first, catch those little guys, and then pop it back in place. So we got everything done. We checked our fluid as we were clamping back. So we can see we are way up, but we didn't run over. So that is good. Set the whole caliper back over here, being careful. Line it up, and we just got to hit our bolt hole, and he's back on. So now we move our bucket out of the way so we can access everything.
Slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, although shit never slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and
And there we go. So now we got everybody changed out. Last step on the list is to go up there and push the pedal, and it'll lock those back down. And then you can check and make sure everything looks good on your pads. So let me go up there and push the pedal real quick, and then we'll be ready to switch over to the other side. Alright, so with the job complete and a little bit of paper over our new rotor so we don't get this stuff on it, now I'm going to spray this 50% restore, engine restore stuff and WD-40 all over the metal parts. And what that's going to do is coat it for one more time till we get our next DIY job. Good to go once more. I can wipe it with a towel or I can just leave it. And if you get some on the plastic, you can always just wipe it off too. Doesn't hurt it. Make it shiny too. There we go. So, another DIY job done. Now we got our new rotor and our new brake pad, so we are good to go. Well, alrighty. Well, thanks for watching.